Here it is then, your final standings. City, 91 points, 2 clear of Arsenal. Liverpool third, Aston Villa in fourth. Spurs sealed 5th spot, Chelsea 6th, Newcastle 7th. You take a look at it then, it has been quite the run for Manchester City, of course, winning 6 out of the last 7 titles. This one was close, 2 points compared to other title races, but in the end, once again, City get across the line. Let's welcome in, shall we, Julien Laurens, and what's Frank wearing? Wait. Frank is with us as well, not that we can see him, he's on camouflage. Hey. Where is he exactly? What an achievement this is from Manchester City to make it 4 in a row, and it's that, once again, end of season run that proves to be the difference.
Yeah, and I think today's game actually painted a very clear picture as to what Manchester City has been over the course of the season. We expect them to get here in the end, but they kind of take the scenic route. It was always difficult this season. It was always tough. It always felt like it was sort of kind of away from them, but that eventually this talent was going to take over and this experience was going to take over. And that's sort of how it fell in today's match, in that they were in full control and they weren't. And then maybe, is there any doubt? Is there any concern that nervous energy that you were talking about in the stadium, eventually that goes out the window when Rodri scores, and then you felt like, yeah, this is Manchester City, this is what we expected them to do all along. I don't know that we thought they would take the scenic route to get to this point, but in the end, I think the right team ends up winning the title. Manchester City, they prove when it counted. At the very end of the season, when we felt like this is where the big matches and the big results have to come your way, Manchester City always found that way.
Rodri's goal was huge, wasn't it?
Absolutely was. I think there's a certain sense of nervousness that just started to creep in at the Etihad, just because you just can't help but wonder, if not worry about it. And then Rodri steps up and finds the bottom corner, and that just settles things back down. West Ham had started to push, maybe threaten a little bit, try to make a game of it, but that just kind of took all the air out of any comeback from West Ham. Souček did have the ball in the back of the net later on, but that was a handball and rightly ruled out. That being said, as you look back on this title, 4 in a row, it's never been done before, and all the history that's been written, even in comparison to other City teams, this season just didn't feel like it was as sparkly as it normally is. This is a Manchester City team that haven't really kept the kind of clean sheets that you normally expect. And Erling Haaland that has struggled, and today was symptomatic of it, struggled to find that form that we saw last season. But still, again, and the thing is, with this City team, with Pep Guardiola in charge, somehow, come Christmas, you have to have a 10 or 12 point buffer. Because that run-in, there simply is no one better. You slip once, as Arsenal found out, all of a sudden it's snatched away from you and they do not give it back. For all their faults, for all their shortcomings, they know this run-in. And we put that down to Pep Guardiola because he certainly has been the one constant through all of this.
It's incredible when you take a look at that run. This is since the start of 2024. Manchester City, of course, unbeaten. Arsenal just losing that one game against Aston Villa. And who was at that game, Shaka Hislop?
Oh.
Well, a lot of people were at that game, Dan.
But who, Shaq?
About 60,000 people were at that game, I seem to recall.
Frank, just from a former professional's point of view, Manchester City winning their last 9 matches to get over the line. Psychologically, how much admiration do you have for a side that can do that?
A big one, because it showed how perfectionist they are and ambitious they are. Because, when you win and win and win at some point, maybe you say, well, maybe we can let it go because we proved that we have nothing else to prove. But they showed it. Last year it was already a tough run when they came back and starting from January, they did like they did this season. They proved to the world that they were the best team. And Therefore, because of that professionalism, you cannot erase what Arsenal did for the season. I mean, losing only one game and finishing second for the second time with the way they played their football and the way they thought their football, it's admirable for me because in order to win the Premier League right now, you have to be perfect. Because you know that at a certain point, City will reach that perfection. And Arsenal just fell against Villa, and it's why we cannot say that they were perfect, but they were very close to, and they were, for me, much better than last season. But it's hard, to cope with the team and with the coach. I'm talking about Man City and Guardiola, who at some point know exactly what they have to do, and it's crazy that we were all thinking about the suspense, that the drama that we could get the last day. And maybe the youngest guy will already have 6 titles at 24 years old, Mr. Foden, scored a goal after 2 minutes and killed the drama with a beautiful control and a beautiful shot. Those guys, they know exactly what they have to do at the right time. That's something absolutely fantastic for me.
Arsenal, of course, losing just 1 in the calendar year, losing 5 in total throughout the whole season. Jules, after Foden scored the second, I think you tweeted out it was all over. That was it, done and dusted, no drama.
I think even after the first goal, I tweeted, because even at 1-0, I never really saw West Ham coming back. Even after that, okay, maybe the atmosphere felt a little bit quieter at the Etihad and at the Emirates on the other side. People starting to believe again. I just never thought that West Ham could come back and could score 2 goals at the Etihad, really. So it was almost the perfect afternoon for City. Well done to them. I think there's a case to be made that maybe Arsenal were the better team. Certainly at times in the Premier League this season, but eventually over 38 games, the machine that you've described with City and Guardiola, not at the best, even without De Bruyne for the whole first half of the season, with Haaland still on 27 goals in the season, which is pretty amazing, but maybe not at the level as he was last season. Even with those little things, they're still better than anybody else. They still finish with 90+ points. They're still the best attack. They're second best defense. And they're just incredible.
This, of course, as you mentioned, the first time that anyone's won 4 Premier League titles in a row. That's not just Premier League era. You take it back before then. How much credit should Pep Guardiola get for this achievement and getting this out of his players?
Okay, so the players, obviously, they're on the field. They are the ones putting the ball in the back of the net and defending and playing and so on and so forth. So obviously the players will be at the forefront of all of it. But somebody has to build a platform for all of that to be possible. And Pep Guardiola has been that architect. He has been the one that has built a culture in a club that demands perfection, that demands performances, that demands the very best of yourself, and that demands competition within the club, within the locker room. You want to get on the field, it's not just by name that you're going to get on the field. You're going to get on the field because you're playing well and you're playing within the structure of what we want you to do. You want to be a player for Manchester City in the long term, you have to perform at a high level. You set the standards. And it's so, of all the things that you can sort of point at Pep Guardiola and you can point at Manchester City, when you consider that winning one title is tough. These guys will tell you. One title in the Premier League is tough. To be able to do it 4 times in a row, it goes back to the idea of the excellence that it is demanded and required for you to be a player in Manchester City. And that whatever we did last year, as great as it was, treble, so on and so forth, we show up this year and we have to do it again because this is who we are. It's the personality of the club that we're building. It's the personality of the club that who we are. It's the structure of who we are as a team. It is within our DNA now, and it is demanded from us that we show up every day and perform. Now, that's all fine and well here sitting in a studio and giving you the narrative and the rhetoric. It's completely different to actually have to do it inside the locker room and do it every single day at training and then every day when you go out on the field. It's a narrative that we like to get behind, but to be a player in that environment, you need somebody who's right there with you, demanding that from you, and that's Pep Guardiola.
Frank, Stevie talks about it. Trying to retain a title is one of the hardest things because the hunger just isn't quite at the same level. Pep Guardiola has found a way, hasn't he, of keeping these players hungry.
Yeah, and that's the biggest achievement that we can say that he is the perfect coach for the perfect team and the perfect players, because he exactly knows how to motivate them and not getting carried away by what they just get, but getting the double of it, and after the again one, and therefore win 6 titles in 7 years, putting everybody on the toes and himself, because you have to make sure that you go back to the basics in order to start again and to be successful. So he has to get the credit, and yeah, he spent lots of money. And some people could say, well, you know, when you buy the best player and you spend the money, it's easy. But I have 2 other examples which shows the opposite. One is my favorite club, Chelsea, and the second one is maybe one of the biggest clubs in the world, Manchester United, who spent more than $1 billion to the result that we know. In comparison, yeah, Manchester City spent lots of money, and Guardiola did at Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and now at Manchester City, but for the good result. Therefore, he knows how to pick the player, the right ones, and I can talk about Doku this year, amazing recruitment, and he knows exactly what to do. We saw last week with Ederson going out and getting the second goalkeeper who saved maybe the title 1 week before the end of it. 1 day before the end of it. So the guy knows football. He knows how to be successful, and he knows how to stay humble and go back to the basics the year after. So good credit, big credit.
Also credit to the player of the season, Phil Foden. What a way to start the game. What a goal.
You would have thought that Phil Foden, being only, 22 years old or 23 years old, given his history as a Manchester City fan and coming through the academy, he would be caught up in the emotion of the occasion more than anybody else. And when everybody is still trying to find their feet, when some fans are still trying to find their seats, Phil Foden just exhibits this sense of calm. And while we talk about history being made and all the different parts to it, you have this young man who's come through the academy, who started off in coming off of the bench and is now a significant part of this Manchester City machine. And he is the one who cometh the moment, cometh the man. It's exactly what the Etihad needed, just in terms of settling everything down, given all the conversations we've been having all week long. That goal just kind of settles everybody and says, yep, we're at our best today. We're not gonna get beat.
When he scored the second goal, he actually, as he goes to celebrate, he actually sort of gestures, calm down, everybody, relax, I'm here.
It's Ronaldo-esque, isn't it?
Yes, calm down, I'm here. Now, you would expect that if that's going to come from anybody at Manchester City and scoring the big goal, it would be Erling Haaland. And yet this year, that hasn't been the case. It's been more about Phil Foden in this sort of moments, in big occasions, in big moments that Shaka is referring to, that he's coming up, not just with goals, but big-time goals. Yeah. The turn, the finish, 2 minutes in. And yes, the temperature in the stadium obviously goes up because of the excitement, but the feeling in the stadium settles down because now that nervous energy is gone. And again, to recognize sort of the importance of the moment and then the coolness of the moment in the second goal, he said, calm down, people. Relax, I'm here, we got this, I got this.
And of course, that confidence has been instilled to him, Jules, by his coach.
Yeah, incredible relationship, really, and partnership. When you think that when Pep arrived in the summer 2016, Phil Foden was 17 at the time. It's just incredible, the journey that they had together, obviously. And I think Foden being a prodigy, there's a funny story that Gareth Southgate told the other night when Foden was voted the Football Writers Player of the Season. He said that 10 years ago, he went to watch England under 14 playing, and the talk of the stadium and the buzz was all around this Phil Foden. Where is Phil Foden? Phil Foden is playing for England under 14. Everybody was there to watch him. And Southgate said he was 12 at the time. He played 2 years up. He was the tiniest, the smallest, the skinniest, and yet nobody could come close to him. Nobody could get the ball off him. And basically, he was always a prodigy. But we've seen many, many great players. We've played with some. We've seen some. Not all of them have become like Phil Foden now. There's still a big gap between when you're 12 and 13 and 14 and doing great things to what you do at 24. And that journey, I think Guardiola was key to it, obviously. But to see him now in that position, and there's still an interesting debate about him and De Bruyne playing together centrally, because we've seen this season, in the second half of the season, when De Bruyne came back from his injury, that Pep was quite at times not too keen on doing it. We saw Foden playing wide quite a lot, either on the left or on the right, even in big games against Arsenal at the Etihad, for example, and not having really the game that he should have because that's not his position. So I don't know what's going to happen next season. I don't know if Pep will have to choose one or the other or play them both centrally more. But again, that would be another great chapter of his career.
One last point. I'm sure a lot of people are shouting at the TV screen want me to bring this up. How much do the 115 charges that are pending against City sully this side's legacy, Jules?
It's there, and a lot of people here in England have talked about it all this week. Obviously, going into this last game, going into, 4 in a row, it's amazing. But there is this big but. There's this elephant in the room, and until this is sorted, and they might be proven innocent, they might be proven guilty, they might have sanction, they might not have sanction, they might get away with murder or not. We don't know yet. We know that by the end of this year, 2024, we'll have a better idea. By the start of 2025, we should have the sanction, really. We're not even sure. But let's also remind people that the 115 charges are for a period before the Guardiola era. And you can say that the foundation were built within those 115 charges, which is a fair point too. But it's for things that happened before Guardiola arrived at the club. So the two are linked, obviously, because this team would not be the same without what happened 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I get that. But it's still two different eras in a way. But yeah, of course, a lot of people have talked about that this season and in the last couple of weeks, let's say, and it's still there. So as long as it's not sorted, people will mention the quadruple with the big but of those sanctions and those charges.
You know, I don't think the delay in litigating these charges has helped them. Has helped Manchester
considering
City.
how quickly others
Exactly,
have been dealt with,
and that's the thing, because now, almost regardless of the outcome, let's, for argument's sake, say they found not guilty of all those charges, everybody's going to say, but hold on, you dealt with Everton twice, you dealt with Forest, they've had fines, you've kind of sat back and let City, because of that big club mentality, because they're winning the Premier League, City have been allowed this kind of runway. And because of how long it's taken to deal, if they dealt with this when it first came up, and they had a hearing and they were found not guilty, I think everybody takes that, a little bit of murmuring, but everybody takes that and moves on. But the fact that you just keep kicking the can down the road while you deal with other clubs who don't have the record and finances that Manchester City do, whatever comes of it, people are going to say it's not enough. You've been far too lenient.
Meanwhile, Frank, you mentioned Arsenal much better than they were last season. Does it soften the blow at all if you're a professional player within that Arsenal squad that you've been beaten by this Manchester City side?
Well, I don't know if you feel any comfort, because you've been beaten by a fantastic team. You don't care about that. You wanted to win. You think you deserved it. You lost only one game. I remember being at Chelsea.
They lost 5 games, Frank. They lost 5 games this season, just to make that clear. Yeah. They lost 5. They lost 1 this year.
No. I mean, no. They lost 1 game since the beginning of the year.
Yes, I know. I just wanted to make that clear.
Sorry. Yeah, sure. Sorry. But I lost 3 games during the season with Chelsea. But I played against Arsenal and Manchester United, who were at the time very much better than us, and we didn't win the title. I can tell you the frustration that I had. I didn't care that I had to consider the Manchester United and Arsenal better. Players are sad, frustrated, at some point guilty because they maybe can think that they could have done better. But 10 years from now, they're gonna look at it and say, "Wow, what a hell of a season we had." We pleased the fans. We did what they had to do. We faced a fantastic team that we had to play against, that we beat as well. But we weren't perfect, and nobody's perfect. But we did our best, and we have to be proud of it. Today is hard. I don't think they're going to sleep well. They're going to have regrets. But football players, they have a life where, very soon they're going to play other games. For some of them, and most of them, they will have the Euros. So they're going to turn the page and play the Euro and hopefully target the next season as a possible title for them. That's our lives.
What I thought was interesting, Jules, were the scenes that we saw at the end. And the fans very much getting behind the players and their manager as well.
You will feel very disappointed. I don't think you feel frustrated, maybe. But the disappointment is there because, again, you were so close. You pushed them all the way until the last game, the last few minutes of a very long season. But it's still very positive. You're a better team than last season. It's a better season than last season. You didn't crumble in the final sprint of the season like you did last year. You've learned a lot. You've played in the Champions League for the first time. For many of those players, it was their first time in the Champions League. You reached the quarterfinal. So there's so many positives in this season that you can't just let the disappointment just overshadow everything. You lost to the greatest team that we've ever seen in English football history. So yes, of course, it's hard to take because some of those boys will feel like they were the better team. They took 4 points out of City. They won and drew against them in the 2 games that they played. And if you count the Community Shield, it's even 3 games that they didn't lose against them. So, of course, it's there and you will feel disappointed. But it's so many positives. Last season, nobody expected you that strong and that good, and then you fell apart. This season, you were in the kind of contenders, but nobody saw you pushing all the way until the last game of the season. Next season, like Frank said, you will be among the favourites. It'll be City and you just under, just breathing down their neck at the start of the season in August. And that's, for me, the biggest challenge is already next season. How do you prepare for it? Who is your squad? Who you let go? Who you sign? Who's going to be your key players? How can you improve your key players?